Sure, do you want to see if there's a way? Let me in.
I'll see if there is. Yeah. There's 2 people in the waiting room. Um, and oh, there is. So Elizabeth is here. See if I did this.
Me to unmute. Okay.
There we go. Hi.
So hi. I don't think my my headphones are working.
Oh no. Can you not
Hang on
hear
a
me?
second.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm hearing you not through my headphones. Hang on.
Oh.
Sometimes they're connected to my phone.
Oh yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'll turn the Bluetooth off on my phone.
Okay. Sometimes
See
that
if
is a
I
weird
can.
thing.
I think I'm.
Oh, the other thing is you could do is when you go to the microphone,
Yeah.
so in the bottom left-hand corner, there's that little microphone and an up arrow. Then you can select where you want the mic.
Oh,
So
no.
maybe that has something to do with it. We were kind of troubleshooting some of this stuff. I was so nervous about getting
I
it
know.
on it. So
I know. Okay. Now let me turn my Bluetooth back on. I never knew that would you so much. Let's connect. And now it seems.
I
Okay,
just
how
realized
about now? Can you?
yeah.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Because it's a little bit better with the earphones, just because I
It
think we hear
is.
each other better, you
Because
know?
then, yeah, it doesn't loop through or
Now I
whatever.
can't hear you at all.
Oh no, really? Shoot.
Um,
Oh no.
what happened? Okay, here you're back again.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay. So, hi.
Hi,
So, how are you?
I'm good.
You look good.
Thanks, you too. I like your hair. You got your
Oh,
hair cut? Or your hair,
well,
you're
he
done.
cut like a very little bit off of
Uh-huh.
it and blew it out, but then I walked home in the humidity and it's just sort of a frizzy mess. But
Oh yeah.
it's not curly like yours, but it's usually a little curly. And it was just a rat's nest because I cut my hand up and now I'm down to a
Oh my
very small bandage.
gosh.
But I haven't been able to really wash my hair. I'm supposed to get the stitches out today, but I thought I'd wait one more day.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, it's all good. So I have all of like, I don't know, I have all
Cool.
of Lucia. Is it really dark where I'm sitting? I can try and get more light on me, but
It's
I think
good.
it's okay.
It's good. Yeah, it
Okay.
looks good. I
Okay.
like it. Yeah. Yeah.
Just my desk. But I mean, I have all of Lucia's books here.
Awesome.
I have them in, I'll show you closer.
Yeah.
Because I have copies of, this is the UK edition of Manual.
Oh,
Because my
nice.
friend was supposed to save me a first edition of the American, but he forgot and gave it away.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then FSG, Emily Bell sent me these, and then these are the Italian versions. And then I have a French version and a Spanish version. And I have all
Nice.
her old books, which are all on like, I should send you one of these.
Oh my
They're really hard
gosh.
to find now. They're
That's
so
so
beautiful.
cool. So long is like one of
Yeah,
my
all
favorite stories.
of the Black Sparrow ones are really beautiful.
Yeah.
And this was the one she published. These are all the stories she wrote when I knew her,
Oh
basically,
my god.
where I lived.
I've seen that
Yeah, and
book,
some
but like
sign from
people
her.
post it, but I've never seen it.
I used to find them all the time at the Strand and buy them and just give them to people. Like
Uh,
I've found so many. Now they're worth hundreds of dollars, but
yeah.
you don't find them. And also in Boulder, you find them a lot because she
Okay.
lived there, so sometimes they turn up. But this one she signed to me.
I should tell a
Where
friend. I have a good friend that lives in Fort Collins that I should tell her to like look for them in the store.
she
In the
should, yeah.
yeah.
I found one in Longmont once,
Yeah.
at the Trident, which is the used bookstore in the Pearl Street Mall. So yeah, this is from May 1999. So it was right after I moved to Rome. She mailed it to me.
Oh,
Yeah, but anyway, okay, so I listened. I haven't bought a ticket yet, and I feel terrible. I know I'm gonna be asleep, but
yeah. Don't worry. And you
but
probably will be, because I think,
I want to support the cause, you know?
oh, well,
So
we'll
how,
get it. I think we'll get the recording. I mean, that's, yeah, but it's okay. I mean, we'll get the recording
because I was like,
afterwards,
well, I
and
could just stay up because I think, what time is it it's on Wednesday, Tuesday,
it's on
your event.
Wednesday. It's at 7 p.m. Central Time. So, oh my gosh, I love when I talk to you and I hear those bells. They're so
Can you hear them?
cool.
All my
Yes.
windows are closed, but
They're just so
yeah, it's
cool
7 o'clock.
though.
It means it's 7 now, so we're supposed to start.
Okay. We can
But I mean, actually, they're always a few minutes early.
okay. Yeah, it seems like we're like 1 minute early, but there's a lot of people joining. I would say there's
Okay.
probably there's 12 people already. David and Jeff said they would both want to say things. I don't know if Jeff's going to have his video on. He said he might not have his video on, but we could still turn his
Yeah.
sound on, and
I
he
have
could.
this feeling he's very camera shy.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
David's kind of like a showman.
Yeah, David was
Because
like,
I've never met, Jeff's the only one I've never met.
okay. Jeff's coming, but he said that he doesn't want to talk. I said, well, if you want to
Yeah.
put anything in the chat box, go ahead, and we could relay it or whatever if you wanted to,
Yeah.
wanted us to do that. So that was the only
Okay.
thing I kind of wanted to say. But yeah, everyone's here, so I might just
Great.
admit them.
And should I be closer or am I good?
I think you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna open this chat box so I can do this.
So I don't know if I'll be able to see the questions, but
Oh yeah. So what you can do, I think you can see them if you go to the bottom, like bar, if you kind of like hover over the bar, there should be a thing for chat. And if you
yeah, okay.
click on
So
that, then the chat will come
if
up.
someone types one in, it'll show, I'll see
You'll
it.
see it too.
Okay.
Yep. And then
Okay.
I thought we would talk for a little bit, and then I'll like unmute David and see how he's feeling or something, or see
Okay.
if he's wants to
Yeah.
chat, and then
Maybe they want to, maybe better to have them sort of early on or early-ish,
yeah, and I can
you
unmute
know,
them whenever and sort
just
of
so they
see.
don't feel like they have to, I don't know.
Yeah, like
We'll see how it
chime in.
goes.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
really, I see you have your guitar and stuff, and
Oh yeah.
I love this song. I can't wait for the EP.
Thanks.
And it's really beautiful. I love the interpretation. So
Thanks.
we'll talk about that.
It's one of my favorites, and there's so many. I have a bunch more too that I'm hoping to kind of do next year or some other time.
Yeah.
So it's just,
You've listened to her read it, haven't you?
yeah.
On SoundCloud?
Yeah. And I've listened to her
Because
read
nobody
the
can read it
document.
like her.
I know. Part of me wanted to sort of like get some of that. I feel like we should let people in, but get some of her and like, do it in the production somehow, like have her in it, because
her voice.
that could be possible too. I don't know. We have a few days to do some stuff.
That would be really cool. I'm sure
Yeah.
they would let you do that. And her voice is remarkable. So
It's so good. I know, it's so
it's
perfect.
particular.
Especially with my jockey, the way she reads it I love that one.
We can talk about that because I know a little bit about that story, just a little bit about that story.
Okay, that would be awesome. Okay,
It was one of her favorites. Okay, so I'm here. I'm ready whenever.
I'm doing it. Let's do it. In middle.
Great.
Yes.
And should I split my screen between us? How do I do this?
So I think you can tap.
Oh, yeah.
And then everything will.
Oh, now I can see who's coming in.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Laura Fraser. Oh.
Yeah. So many people.
She was my publisher.
Awesome.
Hi, Laura.
Yeah. Oh, this is so cool.
Hi, Charmaine.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Hi, Lauren. Hi, Rosie. Oh my gosh.
It's so great. This is so awesome.
Scotty.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, I'm
Hi,
seeing all these
Larry.
faces I love.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
This is so
Ones too.
cool. And
Hi.
I unmuted David just in case
Hi,
you
David.
want to speak at
everybody.
all. Hi, and it's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, pleased to meet you.
Um,
Is it early there, David? I see
Well,
Jeff's here.
oh, Jeff's here
it's
too.
early. Yeah, it's early for not. I mean, it's 9 o'clock. It's not that early.
Early for
Uh,
you.
that'd
Sunday.
be early for me. Sunday. Yeah. Um,
Sunday, aren't they all the same?
it's
You guys
right.
just missed the church bells in Rome. So
Oh, yeah. I wish I was there.
then 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. we get a whole barrage of. I live in between several bell towers, so it's pretty much a part of daily life here.
It's pretty awesome to talk to you during that. Okay, I think everyone's just right on time for this, which is great. I feel like usually you have to wait for a while till people sort of come in.
I think there's a few. I don't know if I see everybody, but
yeah,
I see some people joining.
Yeah, we can wait for just another minute, maybe. And yeah, until everyone's kind of here. I mean, maybe while people are getting here,
Nice to have something different to talk about than the electional fears.
I know.
We're beyond our fear now. We've moved on.
So, like a huge load lifted last night. It was amazing. And
yes,
I was at a very weird, I was at a place up in Ohio where people are not very psyched. And so it was actually very strange to find out that news there.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're in Chicago?
No, we're still in Lexington now. And after our chat, we're going to head up to Chicago. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. For your event. Okay.
Maybe we'll go ahead and start.
Yeah.
I guess I was just going to introduce myself to, there's a lot of people here I don't know, but my name is Rebecca Rego, and I have put together a few songs that are based on the stories in Manual for Cleaning Women, and that EP, I know I have mine too, and that EP is coming out next week, Wednesday, on November 11th, which is exciting because it's the day before Lucia's birthday, right? And the day that she passed away.
And the day she passed away. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was kind of serendipitous that we did it on that day, that we were going to do this performance on that day. But also 11/11 feels super lucky. So yeah, so that's going to be released in a production with 8th Blackbird in Chicago next week, Wednesday. And I've been working on these songs for about 4 years or so, and have just been kind of enthralled with the writing for that long, and sort of through that process just started researching, found Elizabeth through her article that she wrote in the Paris Review, and started following her on Instagram and kind of going down that. And I just wanted to talk today to Elizabeth about her friendship with Lucia, her, Lucia as a teacher, and how they met and how she influenced you. So if you want to kind of just start on some of that.
Sure. Yeah. I think in the chat it says that Dan Berlin's waiting to be let in, so we can let him in. Maybe there's some others too.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you, Rebecca. And I want this also to be a conversation a little bit more about creative, if possible, if you're into it, Rebecca, about creative process, because songwriting is so very different from writing fiction, or maybe it's not, and that's something maybe we could get to in the course of this conversation. I think it's really exciting what you're doing. And just so you guys know, when Rebecca live streams the debut of the EP, the proceeds of her album are going to go to Breonna Taylor's defense fund. So that was something that the Berlin family and Rebecca chose to do, and I think that's really moving, you know, in this moment that, you know, artists are collaborating to help good causes. So I'm Elizabeth Geoghegan, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm in Rome at my desk, and I have many Lucia Berlin books behind me, and my shelves are pretty messy, but I have them in a variety of languages, and spanning most of her career. A few hard to find bits and pieces from the early days I don't have, but I did just acquire Safe and Sound, which was one of her earliest, which was a beautiful is a beautiful little book. But Lucia was my teacher at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Did you want me to kind of explain, Rebecca, how I knew her?
Yeah, and if you want to tell that story a
So
little bit.
yeah, and so she was my teacher during graduate school, and the way I met her was, I don't know if it was serendipitous or not, but I was a returning student in the early 90s. I moved back to Boulder. I had a lot of trepidation about this idea of becoming a writer. And it was something I'd always wanted to try my hand at, but I had been putting off in my life. And so when I arrived back in Boulder, I registered for the graduate fiction workshop at the start of the term before we began classes, and it just simply said TBA, to be announced. So I had no idea who my teacher was going to be, and I was really nervous that I wasn't good enough actually to be in a graduate level workshop. So I went into the English department office and I asked the woman who worked there behind the desk, Janet, and I said, "Do you know who's teaching this class?" And she said, "Oh yeah, it's a writer from California named Lucia Berlin. She's going to be our writer in residence this year." And the name, of course, didn't ring a bell for me because it wouldn't have at that point in my own writing trajectory. And she was pretty unknown still in the early 90s, but publishing. And the reason that she was invited to teach at CU Boulder was because of her long-term friendship with the poet Edward Dorn, who was the director of the creative writing program there. And Ed had been a long proponent of Lucia's work, and they'd met in her earlier days in New Mexico when she was a young mother and just starting to write. And we can talk a little bit more about that too. And so Ed and Jenny Dorn were pivotal in sort of people in the life of Lucia's writing life. You know, they published her, they edited her, they supported her, and so it was really just a great gift that I happened along into her workshop, because it could have been anybody. But I was so nervous that I did something that I would really hate if my students did this to me. But I stuck one of my stories in her mailbox, and I wrote this little note. You know, I'm not sure. You know, if I'm ready. Do you think you could read my story before class starts? And you know, it's just like kind of what I would dread having happen to me right now as a professor, you know, just more work before the term's even begun, right? But she read my story, and she called and left the most marvelous really message on my answering machine, and was so encouraging and so kind, and her voice really struck me. And so I had this vision of her as a much younger woman, I admit. And when I walked into the workshop, she said, "Don't be silly, you know, come to the workshop. I love this story. We'll talk about it, and just come." So I did. And when I arrived, I was quite surprised to see that she was, you know, someone who was of a certain age at that point, a grandmother. And, you know, her voice struck me as somebody very youthful. And she was really, I think, you know, she admitted later she was really nervous that first day of class, and she was sitting behind the desk, and she, you know, everything was new. She had just moved, and she wasn't really kind of into the sort of graduate, you know, program system or how anything works. So she had handwritten everything for us and photocopied it, you know, instead of typing it and whatever. And it was really charming. But at the beginning of class, she said, "I'm sure you guys all really want to go out to the bars or something after class," because it was kind of evening class. But if anybody is is driving to North Boulder. I don't have a car and I could use a lift. And I had just quit drinking, you know, like a couple years like earlier. So I was definitely not going to be going to the bar, at least I didn't think so. And so I said, well, I live in North Boulder and I'll drive you. And so I sort of became her driver for the first few weeks of class. And we lived like 3 blocks apart. So for the 2 years that I was in graduate school, we were neighbors and spent a lot of time together. And our friendship started there, but it was just good fortune, really. I couldn't have asked for a better start, really.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And when we talked and you told me that story, it was kind of moving. And then how you said that she had started to have class at her house, and how she
Yeah,
would, you know, have like food for everybody when you guys would come over.
yeah.
And she was just like hosting a party kind of instead of.
Yeah, so what happened was Lucia got sick right after that. So just a few weeks after the beginning of the semester, the graduate workshop moved to her living room because she was on oxygen and she was having some issues with getting around. And so they made a sort of dispensation for her to teach her courses in her house. And really working with Lucia was like the party that, you know, if you weren't invited, you were so bummed, because that I think that first cohort of students, and some of them are probably tuning in tonight, we all had a very close relationship to Lucia. I'm surely not special in that way. She and I had a particular friendship, and we corresponded and called each other and stayed in touch for 10 years, but she was close to many people. And she facilitated friendships in a way, seamlessly, really. And she had correspondences with writers all over the world and all over the States, and she knew a lot of people. So I don't mean to sound ever like I have a special situation, because I think that early workshop group, because of meeting in her beautiful living room with her art. In fact, one of her paintings is on my wall now because she left it to me when she passed away. And I woke up this morning and I opened my shutters, and this circle of light came in and was glowing around Ivan Suvanchev's painting, which he had made for her and she had given to me. And maybe I'll show it to you guys in a little while, but
Yeah,
it's
that
on
would
a
be
different
so.
wall. But so yeah, and so I think that early group, that first year of students, many of whom are really good friends of mine still, we all had a close tie with Lucia because of that feeling of being led into this kind of intimate space of her living room, right, with its red walls and her art. And she always had a vase of flowers on the table. And you know, she was very maternal in some ways, so she really did feed us. You know, it was always like there was brie and there was a snack break, and you know, a cigarette break on the front porch or whatever, if you know, for those who indulged. And that was probably formative for me, because it probably impacts the way I teach now, looking back, and that I try to create a similar intimacy in my classes. And it certainly had an impact on my life and my writing, because I was allowed to be so close to her. And I think, you know, we all had different roles in her life. You know, Dan, this marvelous poet and fiction writer who was in our workshop, always shoveled her walk for her when it snowed in Boulder. And you know, we all had different roles, but we looked after her because she looked after us.
That's
You know?
so cool. And I think that when you're a young person doing anything, but especially in the arts, when you feel like you're in that outside and you're like, why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? Like everyone's telling me not to do this. To have a person
Exactly.
that says, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Come try it out. Come do it. I think that really
Yeah,
is, yeah, big.
she was extremely supportive. I mean, it wasn't a love fest. I mean, she did offer critique, you know, and Lucia was an extremely fast reader. And she read everything, and she was always reading. So she always had a stack of manuscripts from friends, and a stack of manuscripts from students, and then the students she was teaching, and then students that she had met from, you know, the semester before. And but she always took the time. And so it's really precious, like that I have stories with her handwritten notes on them. And she also, with at least with me and with a few others, she shared what she was writing with us as well. She didn't draw any distinctions between I'm published author and you're a student. So
Mhm.
what could you teach me? She was very much in conversation with us about her work and her process. And those years in Boulder, the last decade of her life, were the most prolific of her life. She wrote 77 short stories, which,
Wow.
if you're a short story writer, you know,
Yeah.
you know, even if you write quickly, it takes months to edit and
Yeah.
to under her the circumstances of her life. I don't know how much of her bio everyone knows, but her kids surely know the
Yeah.
circumstances of her life, that she could have produced that many stories, and so many of them phenomenal, really truly phenomenal, is something. And when I was listening to your song, Rebecca released one song called Mama. And if you've read Manual for Cleaning Women, you know that Mama is the title of a story where the two sisters, who often appear in several of Lucia's stories, are having a conversation about their mother. And it's a gorgeous story, and the song is really beautiful too. And I was thinking today, I really think the hallmark of a great artist is if the work of that artist um, influences and inspires other works of art in other genres. And the fact that you're writing music based on fiction, to me, is it, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is that Flannery O'Connor, who's another great short story writer of the 20th century, influenced, you know, an entire album by Bruce Springsteen. After he read, you know, A Good Man Is Hard to Find, he wrote Nebraska. PJ Harvey has two songs based on Flannery O'Connor's stories. Quentin Tarantino always tips his hat to Flannery O'Connor. And I see now, in the wake of the 2015 publication of A Manual for Cleaning Women, that this is just the beginning of a wave, that you're at the beginning of a wave. You're starting a wave with your music, you know? And I think it's incredible. And if those of you who are listening don't know this, the Spanish filmmaker Pedro Almodovar has optioned the rights to A Manual for Cleaning Women, and it will be his first English language feature. So there's a lot of movement now in response. There's an echo that's happening, I think. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of the way that Lucia's work is going to reverberate for other arts and other artists.
I think that's definitely true. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to, well, I kind of started writing these songs out of nowhere, just really through the reading. And I just kind of, you know, one just came out one day, and then it just started like in a wave in that way. But the intro to Manual that Lydia Davis writes, when she sort of at the end of that little intro, when she says, I was kind of just looking at the wording of it today. She says, the work will be quoted, taught, performed, filmed, and set to music. And I read that sort of after that, and I thought, this music, or this work is so musical. And just reading back at it, reading the stories, you know, and I've read them so many times, is like to think about how much Lucia thinks about sound in the
Oh
stories.
yeah,
The sound is so part of what is going on all the time. And that's, you know, and I read a lot, and that is just like what makes it so unique, or one of the parts that makes it so unique, is like how you can instantly be there, like around the sound. And
yeah.
yeah, that's sort of how this all started, really. But I
Yeah,
also,
for sure. The sound is one of those things that I think of when I read her work, and they're voice driven stories for sure. And the cadence of her sentences. And I thought maybe, you know, David or one of her sons might want to speak to this. I mean,
yeah.
Lucia grew up bilingual, speaking Spanish, and I really see in her work the traces of her Spanish language. And I think, especially living in Italy and having learned Italian at this point in my life, I started to see the way her sentences come around, and it's very typical of the Romance languages and not so typical of English. So her sentence structure is particular, and the cadence and the rhythms, I think, owe a little bit of a debt to the Spanish language, and perhaps also to the fact of, being musical in the sense of having married two jazz musicians and lived with them. And I don't know, David, if you have a thought about that, but you grew up speaking Spanish too,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
In Mexico. And
yeah, I haven't, I have to admit that I haven't read the books in Spanish yet, but you brought up Pedro Almodovar, and which speaks to how well she's being received in Latin
translated.
America, and it comes down to the translation. And Eugenia Vasquez, who translated is on the call right now, so I wanted to acknowledge her.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, she
Well,
just
she's fantastic.
Oh,
yeah,
that's so cool.
and
Didn't she win an award for her
she did,
translation?
well, she did, and obviously that is the version or the book that Pedro read that inspired him to want to make a movie based on 5 of the
Yes.
stories. I did also hear through the grapevine that a friend of a friend, had met Antonio Banderas at a dinner party, and he brought up the book, and the person asked him, well, what do you think of the translation? And he said it was fantastic. So a lot of big acknowledgement for Eugenia, who's on the call now. And honestly, it is very, it's no surprise that she's such a hit in Latin America. And even today, I monitor kind of social media, and the posts on Instagram, there's a hashtag Lucia Berlin. It's 10-1 Latin America over any other country, any other language or
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And it's just amazing.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's great. And it is the attention to flowers, sights, sounds. That's very romantic, and that it translates apparently.
Yeah, for sure.
And David, do you think that jazz, do you see the influence of jazz in Lucia's style?
I mean, I didn't until it was brought up, and I still don't know, because she had music in her life before she met these guys, and I don't know whether she was attracted to them because they were musicians, or that was just, I mean, they were friends, the two of them were in a
Sure,
band
yeah,
together.
I know.
So I don't think it was just like, oh look, let me go get another jazz musician. It was like, oh look at my husband's friend. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just
Indeed.
how it goes. Yeah.
Well, I remember Lucia talking about meeting Buddy, and it sounded like it was love at first sight. She was just about to marry Race, and in walked Buddy, and it sounded like it was a matter of time before they were going to run off together, as it were. And yeah, and they did, and that's why you're here.
Yeah, exactly. The only the thing about that, them running off together, just quickly, one thing is, people ask about her writing, whether it's autobiographic. Did that really happen? That's the biggest question we always get. And she writes about it in Welcome Home, and it's a different version than she told me, and it's different than what Bob Creeley put in his biography. So something close to that happened. And so yeah, when people ask me that question, I like, depends on when you ask the question. I think you'll get a different answer.
Absolutely. And Lucia was first and foremost a fiction writer. And sometimes she would say she even got mixed up between who was the real person and who was the fictionalization of character, the characters and so on. And one of the things that Lydia Davis also points out in her intro to the book is this idea of the tension between self-perception and self-projection in Lucia's work. And that's something that I think people sort of, without even hearing those terms, kind of pick up on, that they feel there's a certain amount of veritas to the work. But Lucia would be the first to tell you that, you know, it doesn't, it has to feel true for it to you know, you have to write in a true sense, in a true way, and be true to the actual story you're trying to tell, whether or not you're making up details or expanding the version into something else, or conflating characters into composites. You know, it doesn't really matter. There was a certain amount of truth, I think, that she was able to channel in the stories, whether it was fiction or not. And you know, everybody loves to analyze whether or not it's autobiographical, or if did that really happen or didn't it. You know, that's not the point, really. I mean, it's fun to speculate, but I don't think for Lucia that was the point at all. It was just her material. And you know, one thing that she's a master of is voice, and it's not just a voice that's like Lucia's voice, but she can also write other voices. In a story like Here It Is Saturday, she's, you know, writing from the point of view of a male convict in jail, projecting onto a female, you know, creative writing teacher, maybe, who might be a little bit like Lucia, but she's able to channel a really astonishing array of voices in her work, and in the dialogue within her work, you know, even in the minor characters. So I think there's a kind of truth, whether or not it's fiction or not, you know, whether it happened or it didn't.
Yeah, I love.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that in the beginning, you know, when they say that the story is the thing, that's what an instantly, you know, when I picked up this book and I started reading it, because as an artist, there's always a line that you toe of like lying, where you know,
Sure.
you're a
Yeah,
person, you're a storyteller. And you,
yeah.
and you know, to some people that's what that is, but like as an artist, you're like, this is the story. This is the story. And who's to say this isn't the real story and this isn't what happened? Because I'm here telling the story. And, you know, this is what is here now. And I think that her, like, you know, idea of romanticism, like within all these little events, sort of just really, you know, kind of like draws any person in, any, like, because you realize that like life is all about that romance. Like you're going to remember something in that romantic way, and that's that's what's going to like keep those stories with you. So I really feel like I was drawn early to her for that, is that she has this way of like taking an everyday event that could even be terrible or painful, or you know, something that you might not want to remember, but like make it really romantic in a story. So I just think that's interesting.
Rebecca, it looks like maybe people
Oh,
are
there's
still
another
waiting to
one.
get in.
There's one person. Yeah, for some reason it keeps still doing this, so I keep kind of looking over here to get people in. So I think those people got in, those people got in. Okay, sorry, for some reason it holds them in this waiting room. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's okay. It
okay,
does
great.
that because so people don't Zoom bomb us.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. Yeah.
Which, if you've ever
We
been
don't
Zoom
want
bombed,
that.
no, you don't.
Yeah.
I can't see everybody at once, so I don't know who's all here, but
Yeah.
I see a few faces.
Yeah. I think
And
everyone's in now.
great.
Can I add something, just backtracking a little bit,
Yeah.
that Rebecca was talking about
Absolutely.
earlier, or you both were talking about earlier, about the people being inspired by Lucia's writing, and how you're the first wave, or part of the first wave, and that's how we got on the Pedro subject. But you know, we had kind of when she passed away, it took after a few years, we kind of not forgot about the writing, but you know, everyone had, you know, not just us in this, her family, we had kind of, it was almost a relief that, you know, we could, you know, move on, and you know, she was in a better place, etc. But she had written me a letter before she had passed away, and I've talked about it before, but maybe not everyone is aware of it. where she was laying out, for instance, that you get Yvonne's painting and who gets what and what she wanted done. And she had said, don't throw away any letters or books or whatever and hold on to everything, because 10 years after I die, someone's going to want to publish these and you guys will maybe finally get a penny. And we all thought at the time that she was crazy. And she even said, I know you think I'm in the letter. She even said, I know you think I'm crazy. She said, I don't fancy myself a Jane Austen, but the only good writer's a dead one. And that's a quote from my mom, or a successful writer. But in any event, so it happened really 11 years. So she was a year late. And then, so that was kind of a mind blower. And then a couple years ago, an interview that some of your classmates did with her surfaced online. I think it was Erica. Perhaps.
Yeah, Kelly Palak and
Yes.
and the Lit Hub piece with Kelly and Adrian.
Yeah, and in that, they asked her, what is your wish for your writing? And in that, she said that just sometime years from now, a little girl would read her in a library. So it all's happening, and that's
it is happening.
Easy.
It is.
So I know you didn't read her in a library, Rebecca, but you found her, and you knew that would happen.
And I like getting emotional.
Rebecca, you received a mysterious package, and somebody knew it was going to be meaningful to you, whoever chose that book for you and mailed it to you. So
yeah, I think like most artists or people that are kind of living their life dedicated to doing something like this, you have that person that's your mentor person that can see that future for you and say, when David tells that story, it always kind of makes me emotional, because when I saw that video, I was crying for 2 days. But yeah, you have that mentor person, and listening to people, or listening to even Lucia talk, I saw a YouTube video about how she had a very special relationship. She had a lot of very special pen pal relationships, but with other artists. But I have that with a friend who is a visual artist, and we've been friends for about 20 years, and we write postcards and letters, and he lives out in Washington State in the San Juan Islands, and he does all my covers for my music, and he did this cover as well. He's the artist that did the cover for these, and he did it years before I was kind of had all this work together, and it's amazing how it kind of fits so perfectly. But he was the one that sent me this book, and he was like, this is gonna be important for you. So I just think that it's all connected. We're all in this big loop together, making art and trying to find vibrations from each other. And I really feel like that this work is special in that way.
Right. Well, and then that's another version. There's a painting now as well, in response to the music and response to the stories. And hey. There's someone with a boat. Is that Dan?
Okay. Yeah, I think it could be Dan. Dan, did you want to say anything about your mom at all, or?
Elizabeth, Rebecca, thank you. I can't wait to hear your music. I guess I can Google it, I assume. Elizabeth, I haven't seen you since my mom's funeral in Boulder.
I know.
You're very kind and very sweet, and thanks for bringing me back to her little apartment against the foothills there. And she was such a kind, besides brilliant and smart and witty and charming, she was such a kind, compassionate human being. And she lived through so much pain, her scoliosis, her disease of alcoholism, still managed to raise 4 boys, and then managed to write such beautiful work. And I'll forever be grateful for what she's given me, which is to be a decent, kind-hearted human being. And the way she observed life, like Rebecca was talking about, she'd take the mundane and observe it. So I am given that gift of no matter where I am, I have a different way of observing life instead of just barreling through it. I see things now. And I miss my mom, and thanks for bringing me back to her place, and thank you both for having this, and I can't wait to hear your music, and that's all I got. This is a wonderful event, and thanks for having it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Great.
You know, you're so right. Lucia was so generous and so compassionate, and there's so much pathos in her work, and it's because she lived it. You're right. You're absolutely right. And um, I grew up in a family that had a lot of issues with alcoholism and addiction as well, and um, so I think that was a connection that Lucia and I had shared, because she also, beside her own alcoholism, that she um, managed to beat. She grew up with her mother's drinking and everything, and I think I always remember her. She was so delighted to talk about her sons and her grandsons, Truman and Cody, right? And she was such a maternal and giving person. And everybody had a different relationship with Lucia. I'm sure each one of you four boys had a different relationship with Lucia, and each one of her students had a different relationship with her. And we all felt special to her because she knew how to make you feel special. And that was really her gift. She was very compassionate, and but she was funny too. She was really, really funny, and she was a lot of fun. And the stories, when I teach them, my students sometimes are like, these are kind of dark, professor. And but inevitably they too fall in love with Lucia, because each one of us can find ourselves in these stories, I think, in some different way. Um, and I always thought it was really impressive how close she remained to her children, in spite of all of the difficulty that I'm sure you guys went through while she was drinking. And but she was a survivor,
Yeah. And
for
I think
real.
the
Well-
darkness. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, going back to, sorry to interrupt you, just
No.
16 years in Boulder, she was sober that entire time. So I really think that was the saving grace and redemption, sort of. And maybe that's why she wrote so many stories, because that gave her such a sense of purpose to go from raising four boys with no money in bad neighborhoods, suffering from alcoholism, to being a professor and having such a profound impact on so many people's lives. And being sober, as difficult as it was with her lungs, she had a purpose and a community, and that's amazing. That's beautiful. And I'm also sure when she had people over, she had brie and pate and really good food, because
She did. She did. It was always a party. But she, beside her close ties to those of us who were her students, and those of us who you've met and know over the years, she had her old friends. She had Anselm Hollow and Jane Hollow. She had Bobby Louise Hawkins, who was Robert Creeley's wife. She had Ed and Jenny Dorn, and she had a real network of support in Boulder. And the validation, I think, blew her mind in a way, because she won this big award for being like the most sort of, she won a teaching excellence award, and she was then offered a post to stay. She ended up staying in Boulder, and she was an excellent teacher. And I think that validation was really useful for her. And yeah, for sure, her being sober was key. She couldn't have done it all without. I don't know how she wrote as many stories as she did, sober or not, and teach as many classes as she did at the same time. I mean, she really managed to do quite a lot in those years. She was really on a roll. She would always, you guys who know her, who are listening, she was always like, oh, I can't write, I'm not writing. It was always her lament. But next thing she'd be handing me pages and say, could you read this, because I'm not sure if it's working yet. So she was writing, and she was fast when it got down to it. She was fast at it.
And
She knew her style.
Yeah, I was just going to comment about the darkness, is that that's one of the things that I've really has kind of drawn me to the work, and even made me so, interested in the work is because I think as a woman too, and, I've been working and writing songs for about 20 years now and have put out, a handful of albums. I think there's always a thing with women where people, and, and this could be just like a little bit going down like that feminist road, which I know she was not in that way, but there's always a thing where people are like, we want, to hear nice things from women. We want to hear, I get a lot of that when I play songs, like if they're too dark, oh, that's really depressing, or oh, that's really sad, or oh, that's it, or like if I have photos that are like not me smiling, or oh, you're not smiling in that photo, or just a lot of those comments. And I think it's that I love this work because it's so brave, and it's just like, this is my life. These are the things that are happening to me like anyone else. And in the world I sort of, write music in, there's a lot of Americana music that's about, men that are sad and they're drinking a lot and they're, doing all those things. And that's normal. That's a normal song for a man to sing. But when you as a woman, when you're singing that way, people are like, oh, we don't really want to hear about that, and that's why I like this work so much. It's brave. It's so brave and unique in that way. So
I agree. And I think that in fact, that's exactly what held Lucia back for so many years. I think it, the great acceptance, the huge splash that A Manual for Cleaning Women made in 2015 is a testament to how far we've kind of come as readers, let's say, but how far we still need to go. Because I can imagine for many years, the rejections that she would get were simply because of that reason, not because the stories weren't good, but they didn't like reading about women. If you weren't Raymond Carver telling a story about being down and out, then it was okay for him to do it, but it wasn't okay coming from a woman. And they didn't like those stories about working class women in the margins, and I think it held her back to some degree. But I think actually that is also what saved her, because she just kept producing it anyway, because those were the stories she was going to tell. And now, now we have this cache of great work. She used to talk about this editor at The Atlantic. She had published in The Atlantic early on in her career and then never again. And he used to just write her these terrible, the fiction editor there, whose name escapes me at the moment, he would write her kind of nasty notes. And and it became a kind of joke for her, where she would just, like, there'd be wine stains on the pages, and she would just send them anyway, because she was like, I'm just going to keep sending him stories even though he'll never publish me again, just to
Yeah.
mess with him. And it was pretty funny. But even in her early days, Lucia wrote when she was very young, and she had a publishing contract to publish a novel when she was in her late teens. And the publisher really kept asking her to change the work. At least if I remember the story correctly, when she talked to me about it, she finally just tore it up, or burned it, I think. Just said, to hell with it. If I can't write what I want to write, then I'm not going to publish it at all. And after that, started working on stories eventually, but there was a gap there of time.
Yeah.
There's also some missing work that we hope will turn up someday. I know she lost a novel in Mexico at some point, or a manuscript anyway. But, yeah, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to see if anyone
Does anyone?
else
Yeah.
wants to say anything. There's a way, even though everyone's muted, you could kind of, there's a way to like sort of raise your hand if you want to do that, which I just learned about today. But also if you want to say anything in the chat box, like questions or anything like that for Elizabeth, just, yeah, you can write in the chat box, or if you want to say anything too, feel free. But also, I guess, talking a little bit more about.
We were gonna.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it. Go ahead.
Oh no. I guess I was gonna maybe play a song on here.
Yeah,
This might be a good time to do it. And if
That'd be
somebody would,
great.
okay,
Would love
thanks.
that
that.
would be amazing. Yeah, do it, do it, do it.
Okay, I'll do it. And if anyone thinks of questions while I'm doing that, you can kind of pop in maybe. But this might be a good time for it.
Where are you?
So this is I live in Lexington, Kentucky. And I live here with my partner, and we just live in this little shotgun house in downtown Lexington. And this is our little home studio. So we're just in that, and this is kind of where we record a bunch of music here. The full EP. I was lucky last year in October. I was able to come to California, and the producer that I work with out there, he lives in the Bay Area. So it was really cool to come there, and we recorded the EP in Stinson Beach at a studio up there called Panoramic Studios. So that we were there for about 10 days. And I'm also a chef. And so like I'll travel around and kind of cook food for people. And so I did a series, or I kind of did some cooking there, and I was able to stay there and cook. And then after the cooking part was done, I was able to record these songs. So it was just a beautiful place to do it. And it was cool to be in the Bay Area because we would drive around, and I've been to the Bay Area plenty, but it was just neat to, while we were there, to drive around and see the places that are in the stories as well. I'm going to play Mama, and I kind of finished that in the studio. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm playing guitar here. I finished that in the studio when we were in California. So. Mama said nothing good ever comes from love. You soak your pillow with tears and smoke 2 cigarettes at once. And she'd write me old suicide notes. At least I knew she'd think about me before she'd go. She disowned law when she moved to Mexico. Wouldn't even let her in when she got sick and came home. There's a story God wrote about us before we could even talk. There's a wind that blows across Texas when I'm driving out here in the dark. And I think about you now in the ground. Put her on a boat when she was just 19. She chain smoked with the captain, laughed and drank gin. She was off then to marry it. All the things she could have done if she wasn't run by men. There's a story God wrote about us before we could even talk. There's a wind that blows across Texas when they buried you with the stars. And I think about you now in the ground. And she hated to see us grow and do well, have a future and get beautiful. It's sad to say I'm the same way to you. Every action I take's a little jealousy of youth. There's a story God wrote about us before we could even talk. There's a wind that blows across Texas when I'm driving out here in the dark. And I think about you now in the ground.
That was awesome.
Thanks so much.
Beautiful, so beautiful.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's one of my favorites that are on the EP, and the rest of the songs will be out on Wednesday. So, and they're on Spotify and they're on Bandcamp as well. And we have some physical CDs that are coming, and also we got some posters made of the cover, and all the profits from those things are going to go to Justice for Breonna Taylor. If you didn't hear that in the beginning, when I had messaged Jeff and talked to him about, the record and coming out, I really wanted all the proceeds to go to something that Lucy would want. And he messaged that would be something. And I was like, I live in Kentucky and that's very close to my heart. So it was great cause to donate everything to. So yeah, I don't know if anyone had any questions or anyone wanted to say anything, if we have anything in the chat box, but let's see here. Let's see. What somebody says, hi Elizabeth, do you know what is the inspiration bet? I don't know what that means, maybe. But
Sorry,
I don't know what it says. It says,
can you the inspiration bet?
I'm not quite sure about that one.
So maybe Karen, whoever wrote that, Karen who wrote that, can you explain a little more carefully what you mean? And there's another one, can you talk about the process of writing the songs? How close are they to the stories and just the setting to
the text and music, or more inspired by?
That's for you, Rebecca.
Yeah, I feel like they're definitely a little bit of both. Obviously, if you know Lucia's writing, or taking a little bit of imagery from that, and then also a lot of the choruses, I really found I felt like by reading them over and over, I tried to get to the heart of the matter of the songs, and sort of create a chorus out of that. And that's sort of how they came about. And it was a little bit of both. So, and I feel like they kind of, if people, when you're writing or you're doing art, sometimes it comes from somewhere where you don't really know. It comes from another place that we don't know. So yeah.
Mysterious.
I think there's somebody that has their hand up, and I'm going to try to unmute them. Rosie, let's do it. Hi, Rosie.
Okay,
Can you see it? Elizabeth, did you?
Oh, there you go. Hi.
I don't see Rosie, but
Elizabeth?
Oh no, you're
Oh,
muted,
no.
Elizabeth.
Oh no. I messed up. So sorry. Rosie, yeah. What would you like to
Hi
say?
guys. Thank you so much for organizing this. I just wanted to say that I couldn't agree more with what Elizabeth said about the Spanish influencing Lucia's work as a mother tongue. I definitely felt that way. Like anytime that I read her sentences, I would laugh out loud and be like, haha, that's so Spanish. Like that's not actually in English, and sometimes in my head, even though I read the stories in English, it was like my memory of the stories would be in Spanish, if that makes sense. But there's a story in particular that I never can get out of my head, which is her abortion story, or trying, right. And one part that I think is so funny, and I know, like, if there's any Spanish speakers or people who speak both languages have had this situation happen where somebody thinks that you speak like English or whatever, and then they speak the other language, and you tell them, like, no, I actually speak Spanish too, and they immediately, like, their whole the whole energy changes. And she was so good at capturing that, and that scene actually cracks me up, and I read it often because I just think it's so brilliant that she's able to capture that moment. And that goes also to your point of, like, how brilliant she writes the minor characters. That doctor is perfect. I mean, like, I think every Latin person has met somebody like that. has been around a doctor or, you know, like a lawyer or somebody that like, it's just the same. And the joke about like, oh, how can you make me like, you know, like work so hard for my English when you could have just told me you spoke Spanish? Like that's a line I've heard so much. And it's so brilliant that, you know, she's able to capture these moments and these cultural things that aren't always easy to pick up if you grow up in them, you know? But yeah, I mean, that's all I wanted to say. She's
That's
brilliant, and thanks
wonderful.
you for doing this.
Yeah, that's great. That's great
Thanks,
insight. Thank you,
Rosie. Rosie's Venezuelan,
Oh,
and she
nice.
was one of my students in Rome many,
Oh,
many years ago,
wow.
and she's fantastic,
Are you living in Venezuela now,
as you can
Rosie?
see.
Oh, no.
No. Okay.
I'm in Atlanta, so I'm not far from
Ooh,
you.
Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Rosie. That's great. I think we have
Thank
somebody
you.
else. Karen, I'm gonna get you here. And let's see here. I'm gonna maybe mute Rosie. Okay. Do we do this? And ask to unmute. Sorry,
I
guys.
don't get the raised hands, only you do,
I know. Like,
because you're the boss.
I'm trying to get all this together. Okay, I think I got you.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yeah.
First of all, Rebecca, your song gave me chills. It was so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And the question I was trying to ask, and I hit send too soon, was do you know where the inspiration for the title, the manual for the cleaning woman title came from, or how she came up
I
with
know
that?
a little bit about it. So there's, if you've read the collection, there's a story that's titled A Manual for Cleaning Women. And in Lucia's lifetime, she actually worked sometimes as a cleaning woman, cleaning houses. But when she wrote that story, you guys can hear the church bells now.
Yeah.
When she wrote that story, she really wanted, the original title was A Manual for Cleaning Ladies. And she really fought to keep that title. And even in the first rendition of its publication, they published it as A Manual for Cleaning Women. She hadn't intended it to be Cleaning Women because I think she really wanted that almost more derogatory term, cleaning lady, you know, that sort of universal label. But if you guys are familiar with the story, it's a remarkable story, and it's one that Steve Emerson, who edited the collection, we've talked about it many times, and he says he really feels like Lucia hit her stride with two stories, and that her work sort of turned toward where we see it having ended up, you know, with and that was Angel's Laundromat, and then A Manual for Cleaning Women. And I would say that A Manual for Cleaning Women is in some ways one of her more experimental stories, because it's sort of written in these snapshots that are done by bus lines in Oakland. So each bus, you know, has a different number, and it's where the different cleaning women know, you know, where that bus route goes. And so I had a student once analyze it who was from Oakland, and she was delighted by that story. But it's a rather complex story, and it's very difficult. It's a cleaning woman who's narrating it, and she's talking about the different clients that she cleans for, but it's in the aftermath of the loss of her lover, who's died by suicide. And so she's kind of having a breakdown in a sense while she's telling the story herself. So she's taking care of all these other people's lives, and her story kind of filters in through the different households that she cleans for and the different people who she's talking about in the story. And there's a kind of subtle nod to the loss of this other character, Tare, who she references in the story a few times, who's a man that is gone now. And it's a pretty raw story, I would say. So how it became the title, maybe Jeff Berlin or David or Dan knows. I mean, I don't know why it was chosen to be the title of the collection, if not just because, as I said, Steve Emerson, who so carefully and beautifully edited the collection, thought it was an important story. You know, you always want the title story to hold the whole book, and I think that title works as a sort of contains all the themes within the collection, if that makes any sense. And it's also, you know, with cleaning, a manual for cleaning women, of course, in this version, it's also a double entendre, right? So are you cleaning women, or are you cleaning women, right? So, but yeah, so it comes from an early story that she published earlier in her career, and then it's republished in the collection.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. That's a great question. And I was just thinking about, do you know more about how Stephen actually decided to put the stories together? Like, what was his kind of like inspiration to do it when he did do it? Do you know that, Elizabeth?
You mean the order that they're in,
or just to edit
the
book
selection
and,
process?
Yeah, just selection, or just deciding to like put the stories out to try to send out to be republished in manual.
Well, there's kind of a backstory to how the book came into being, and David kind of talked a little bit about, you know, that it was kind of some years before a manuscript was put together. But if I'm correct, I believe it was the writer and filmmaker Barry Gifford who originally was one of the proponents of trying to get Lucia's manuscript onto the desk of a publisher to bring it out, because, you know, she had always published with Black Sparrow Press when she was alive, or not always, but that was who she was publishing with when I met her in the early 90s. And Black Sparrow is a legendary press with beautiful books. Show you guys one. I don't know if you can see it because I don't see myself on the video, but when Black Sparrow Press was sold and David Geoghegan took it over, I think, you know, the press itself made a lot of money off of Bukowski and Paul Bowles and John Fante, writers like that. And so then there was a kind of coterie of other writers that he loved and published, who were marvelous writers, really, but their books didn't get distributed that well. So Lucia among them. So by the time she died, her books were out of print because the press had kind of, now it's back up in action, but there was a kind of lull there for the press. And so, in fact, about a year before a manual came out, I got an email from Geoghegan that the books, there were tons of her books in the warehouse, and they were selling them off for $1 a piece. And those of us who knew her were like, let's buy as many books as we can, you know, and luckily we did, some of us, you know, because you know, a year later, bang, you know, a manual for cleaning women came out, and it was book of the year in countless number, you know, in so many countries, and she was written up everywhere. But I think I've digressed away from the question. So when Stephen was working, I don't actually know the backstory about exactly how the editing I wouldn't want to speak for him about how he edited the book. I think he could answer that. But I do know that there are 70 stories, and I think my guess is that if anyone could have predicted how popular the first collection would have been, smaller, you know, may not really see enough coming out, but of course other have come out, and there are more stories in Evening in Paradise, which I believe Eugenia also published or translated.
Yeah.
So that's this one.
Yes.
So there were
hi,
more stories
Elizabeth.
that came out. You did. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So, but so I don't know too much about the selection process, except for that probably he felt there was overlapping material with some of the stories in the second collection. Yeah, but maybe you know
Um,
because you've probably talked to Steve a little bit
yeah,
about that, maybe, or
for the first book,
maybe he's
I was
here.
in
I don't
touch with
know. I
him.
invited him.
I haven't seen him before, but just a while before. It would be nice to know, because I do have the dates where the stories were written. So
Mhm.
maybe the intention was to like a panoramic selection, but
Mhm.
I also have the impression that maybe because of this black sparrow piage, or I don't know, but maybe my impression is that the first collection is more focused on this let's say the dark moments, let's say,
Mhm.
the low moments are way more in the whole collection than maybe An Evening in Paradise, that I don't know, it's probably just by chance, but yeah, it's more the stories of youth, of I don't know, the lighter stories, and it's a bit more
Mhm.
rosy. And that's my
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Mhm. I
So
do.
yes, but I don't know. I'm just, and I'm I'm a bit I'm not used to this kind of meetings online, but I'm so glad to be here. I just take the chance to say it's so great to hear you, to know more about Lucia, to discover for me Rebecca's work. I think it's around Lucia's literature and your music, but I missed the first few minutes, so I'm not sure about it. But well, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations
you.
for your
Yeah.
beautiful
congratulations to you.
translations.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you very much.
you.
I
Thank you
I
so
also
Thank you so
translated
much for
the
everything.
yeah, thank you,
Thank
Berlin
you.
Bunch, the Berlin Bunch. Thank you all.
Someday we'll get to come to Spain and actually meet you in person.
Yeah. I'm waiting for you.
Someday, us too.
Now let's
Yeah.
see if everything keeps turning for good after today. I also congratulate you all in America
Thank you.
and all the world. We are
Um,
happier, a bit happier today.
Yes.
Okay,
Is it Eugenia? Is it Eugenia in Spanish? Sorry, my Italian is
Eugenia.
messing up my
Yeah, Eugenia.
Eugenia.
Oh,
So
Eugenia. Yes.
you've been translated all of Lucia's works in Spain,
Yes.
which is really nice
Which
because
is,
then there's a consistency to the voice and the
yeah.
selection, and you really know the work because you've worked with so many. I mean, how many of these stories have you done now? Quite almost all of her stories. Then.
Well,
There's
the
just a
ones
few
that are
left.
published
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are 43 in the manual,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
22 in the second
Mm-hmm.
one. So in Evening in Paradise, so it's 66, right,
Yeah.
more
So
or
there's
less.
a few out there.
So there's a few out there, but I don't know. The
Yeah.
Berlins must know more about it. But I'm
Yeah.
here,
No. There's some in this.
anytime.
There's some
Contemplate.
that are just that aren't collected.
Yeah, I got,
But
probably there's also this matter about contracts and
sure. Sure.
that you cannot maybe use a short story that is still in a
print.
ongoing publication, probably, or maybe just matter of consistency of the whole, because both what I meant to say is that both books are really consistent. It wasn't intended probably that the second one was coming out later, but it's surprisingly consistent too. So
Yeah.
It's
And both titles are really apt, I think.
Yeah.
They have the right titles for the type of collection that
Yeah,
is contained
I
within
agree.
that
And
title. Yeah.
that's an honor to Jeff Berlin, the second book and
Yeah.
third, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. And thanks to Jeff for getting those out into the world. And if
Yes.
those of you who haven't read them, then Welcome Home is actually nonfiction that Lucia was working on when she passed. So, and some letters and so on.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a gazillion letters out there because she wrote a lot of letters. I have many myself, and so do others who studied with her. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Oh, yeah. David, did you want to say anything?
Well, I know Jeff's on the call, and we remember things differently. But I did want to speak to. I did have a conversation with Stephen about how he came up with the stories, and he had said that, he just wanted to pick what he thought were the best ones, and then sometimes that meant overlap. There are stories that overlap.
Right.
He was forced to pick what he thought was the best one, and in his opinion, and we didn't have an opinion at the time because we thought they were all wasting their time. Like you said, yeah, if we had known, I think if we had known, again, our experience was it was just a heartbreaking waste of time for her, and no one read her, while she was alive, and why would this change? So if we had known, yeah, I think we would have opted for fewer stories and more collections. But we're not gonna complain. It's been a blessing and an honor and a surprise and a gift that keeps giving. So we're happy about that. One thing though, which is interesting, and
Oh no, maybe David froze.
just hearing Eugenio, I mean, think that some of the stories, Evening in Paradise are a little more autobiographical, a little happier, a little more lighter, and more about her actually, or like I think, and to a certain degree, like Musical Vanity Boxes, which always was one of my favorite ones because it was one of the only stories I could read that didn't just depress the shit out of me. So I think there's part of that there, and also it made me think about that thing that, like, they didn't want to put when they put out the book, it was the cover is beautiful, but no picture of Lucia. And it wasn't until later when people started digging up these photos, and then it kind of drifted away to become more about mom in a sense. Like everyone's these pictures and how her beauty and her looks, and so on. These other in Europe and Latin America, her face is on the cover. They're selling, and they didn't do that here. And I'm not making a judgment, but I just know that the books sell 10 times more over there than here. So I think people are just fascinated with her, and that's just great. But yeah, I think you can hit it on the head as usual.
Well, I think that brings up a really good point, David, about Lucia was extremely beautiful, and yes, they do put her cover on all the Italian versions and the French version. This is the Italian.
Oh, nice.
Italians are famous for making terrible titles. So this was the woman who wrote short stories instead of just a manual for cleaning woman, translated. Oh no, this is the French one, doesn't have her picture, but I do think, a lot of people have been captive. I think a lot of people have been captivated by the photos of Lucia because it plays into their fantasy of her as this tragic figure. She was so beautiful and so gifted, and nobody knew it in her lifetime. And of course, any of us who studied with her, knew her at the end of her life, didn't, she was still beautiful, but she was a different age, and she wasn't, the photos that Buddy Berlin took of her, their love affair is clear in those photos. She's absolutely so stunning in every single one. And you see that comes through in his ability to capture her with film. But I sort of wish there were some pictures of her, how she looked when I knew her, because to me, that's the Lucia who was writing, the bulk of the stories that I'm familiar with. But, they're amazing, those photos. And if they sell more books, great.
I have a few of those, Elizabeth, I can send you when I came to visit her. So I'll send you those.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Hey,
Well,
real
there's
quick,
some pictures of her. Sorry, go for it.
no, just while you're looking for those pictures, a quick story about all those photographs was that we hadn't seen those until right before the book came out.
Really?
We have our family albums that we all grew up with and kind of have burned into our memory the photos in those albums. And my dad had, an old box of crap when he passed away that ended up at my brother Jeff's house. And Jeff had assumed that what he saw in that box were the negatives of the photos we had all seen growing up our whole lives. And it wasn't until literally, I think a year before we found out about Stephen's project that he decided to go through it. And I'm sure he's on the call cringing because I'm telling the story wrong, but it's my story.
Is
Today,
Stephen here? I don't know if
no, I was
see
talking about
him.
Jeff is cringing,
Oh,
but
Jeff.
Oh.
Okay.
anyway, when he finally went through the box, it turned out that they weren't the negatives of the photos we knew. They were 35 millimeter slides that we had never seen. And so
Right.
all like the picture you just held up, the picture of me and mom that made the cover of the New York Times,
Yes.
all these
yes.
pictures you've seen, no one had seen for 50 years.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
for
That's so
me, I
crazy.
remember the day I got that picture of me and her, which is on my wall somewhere. I saw it for the first time, and then a year later it's in the New York Times. So the whole thing was just really surreal. And I think those photos did have a lot to do with the success of the book, just because they're so intimate.
Mhm.
Yeah, they
are.
are. And Jeff very nicely gave the Paris Review the photo of her smoking for my essay, and it went viral. And I'm sure it's the photo, and that was the first time anyone had seen that photograph of Lucia with a cigarette. It's been reproduced a lot now, but in that moment, it was like, wow, there she is, with her blue eyes, and this is more Lucia when I knew her in Boulder when she was teaching us, and
Also very beautiful.
yes,
I have
indeed,
to
indeed,
say,
tall, really
I-
tall.
I'm looking at that
Yeah.
photo right now. It's funny. It's on my wall.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I do have a question here for you, Elizabeth, from Lauren Johnson, and she says, I have a question about your fabulous short story collection, 8 Ball, which I think that, I hope everyone knows that Elizabeth is an author in her own right, and she has a wonderful short story collection called 8 Ball, and I have that and read those stories as well, and they're amazing. And she says, are there any stories in particular that were influenced by Lucia's work in 8 Ball?
Thank you for the question, Lauren. Well, if you knew me in grad school, you knew that I was famous for trying to write a novel that while everyone else was writing short stories, I was, like, I don't want to write short stories, and here I was working with this sort of preeminent short story writer, or one of the 20th century, little did I know. So I was working on a novel when I met Lucia, and I never published that novel, but the title story 8 Ball is composed, I found many years later, and I had tossed it out because I had rewritten it in a different point of view. And when I found those pages, those were pages, that first person narrative of the story 8 Ball, which is a story about a brother and sister. It's a kind of coming of age story. Much of it was composed with Lucia as my mentor when I was writing my thesis in Boulder. And I kind of stitched it together with new work to make it function as a novella. So I think that story, while I don't think it's necessarily influenced by her style, I think it shows the hallmark of her influence on me and how she taught me to write, and what she taught me to focus on, and how good she was at picking out really subtle details to highlight in her own work. It was something I think I owe a real debt to her in terms of description and detail. And you know, I could never say that I am a master of voice the way that she is, but she liked that first person narration, and I never did at the time. So I, you know, so I sort of put it away. But it was really nice for me to be able to bring it out in my collection and have it work. So thanks for asking that. And I guess the first story, Tree Boy, was really the only other story she worked with me on, because I wrote it just before she died, and I sent it to her in Boulder or California. I can't remember. I think she was still in Boulder, and then she sent it back, and we went back and forth on it a little bit. And so she gave me some insight about how to edit that story. So there are two works in there that she kind of influenced, I guess. Yeah.
That's really awesome.
So forever grateful to her for seeing a writer in me when I was always so quick to, I was always trying to get out of it. You know, I was always trying to quit or not write or give up. And she saw something in me that I didn't really see myself yet. So yeah.
That's
Thank you.
super special.
And by the way, Spain is the only country that was interested in 8-Ball for translation. So Eugenia, maybe I will send you a copy.
Yes, that would be great.
If you want to read it, just for fun.
That's right here. I have a
Yeah,
copy
the
right here.
Italians weren't so
That's what it looks like.
interested in it.
I meant
Italians weren't
to buy it, Elizabeth. I promise I meant to do it,
No
but
worries.
you know, with all this situation, I've been really out of out
No
of the
worries.
world. I mean, at home, just a bit recluded. But it's a good moment to refresh my mind. So I look forward.
Okay.
Great,
No,
that's
it wasn't.
great.
It was
I
just a
just
joke.
take the
But
chance to say goodbye because I need to go now. And it's been a pleasure. It's been great to hear you. And if you post this, whatever, I'll see the rest some other
okay.
day.
Wonderful.
Big
Adiós.
love.
Thanks,
Besitos.
Love
Eugenia.
to
Thank
everybody.
you.
Eugenia.
See you
luego,
soon.
Eugenia.
Hasta luego. Nos vemos aquí también.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
soon.
you. Bye.
Espero que sí.
Ciao.
Adiós.
And I guess we can just, does anyone else have any more questions, or does anyone else have anything else they'd like to share? Oh, I feel like we might have had
I think there's
something
one.
come up here. Here's a question for Elizabeth, Rebecca, and anyone else after hearing more about Lucia's work. I'm hearing a common theme of her ability to really nail simple, honest, and everyday interactions and observe her stories. So I was wondering if you all could describe any specific moments, any specific moments or scenes in her stories that really stick with you or immediately struck you. I know that I have some, but Elizabeth, if you have some,
Why don't
wanna
you
go.
start, Rebecca?
I would say the first story that grabbed me, and I mean, all of them, as soon as I started in like Angel's Laundromat right away, you're really wrapped in. But when I got to So Long, that was the story and that was the first song I actually wrote, about a story, was So Long. And I think one of the reasons is because it starts talking about this relationship that she has with, and at the time I had no idea, but I'm guessing it was with Buddy, because they were still very good friends. And how they, still had this like communication all these years later, and how it sort of, almost like annoyed her, but it was just like so loving. And as a person, and I have those relationships with people, and I think we all do, or, you have, a romance with somebody, and then it goes away, that romance part goes away, but then they still stay in your life and they become this really special zone. And I think people don't really write about that very often. And I remember reading this and being like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is so cool, because I haven't heard somebody like describe this relationship before so perfectly, where it's almost like, you know, you're close and you have these connections. And so I remember, you know, when she talks about that specifically, that really grabbed me. So yeah.
For sure, So Long is one of my absolute
Mhm.
favorite stories, and I cry every time I read it.
Mhm.
And there's a moment in the story where you focused on the relationship with, in the story it's Max, and she says, you know, I love to hear Max say
Mhm.
hello. I think that's the opening line of it.
Mhm.
And he calls her, and I do remember her. She and Buddy talked on the phone all the time, even daily maybe. And I often think back, you know, he passed during those years that I was studying with her, and um I didn't realize at the time, you know, how huge, that enormous that loss must have been for her. But one of the lines or situations in the story that sticks out for me is, um, the character in the story is caring for her sister who's dying of cancer in Mexico, and she's spending a year in Mexico City to do this. And there's a moment where she walks into, she goes shopping, and she feels completely invisible, and she doesn't know which language she belongs in anymore. And like she's disappeared from view. And it's a very powerful paragraph. And it's almost like a moment in the story where nothing at all happens, but she zeroes in on a feeling that I think permeates much of her work, which is this um, kind of searching for home and not knowing where, you know, where one belongs, you know, exactly. There's a peripatetic nature to the stories, to the style of the stories, um and to the characters' lives, you know. And so there are many moments, but that moment for me is really powerful. If you guys want, I can look for it and
Mhm.
see if I can
Oh, that would be really cool.
maybe somebody else has a
Yeah. Does anyone else want to put their hand
I
up if
marked
they
it.
have?
And she
They
actually
have a
did go to,
story.
she did go to Mexico City to care for her sister who was dying of breast cancer, and
Mhm.
had a
Hmm.
profound impact on the family there, and gave us all a new relationship with them and us, our Mexico City cousins and family, and
Hmm.
things she did.
In the story, she says, actually, Sally and I don't talk that much anymore. It hurts her lung to talk. I read or sing, or we just lie together in the dark, breathing in unison. I feel I have vanished. Last week in the Sonora market, I was so tall, surrounded by dark Indians, many of them speaking in Nahuatl. Not only was I vanished, I was invisible. I mean, for a long time, I believed I wasn't there at all. Of course, I have a self here and a new family, new cats, new jokes, but I keep trying to remember who I was in English. It's it's just it's a quintessential Lucia moment in a story where she's moving between lifetimes of experience and wrapping it up in a single thing, you know, a single second of time. I think
Mhm. Mhm.
she's a master of that. And it breaks my heart to hear you guys say that, you know, it was a heartbreaking endeavor for her for so many years, you know, to write and to not see her work gain purchase when it so deserved it. I think she knew, though, you know. I think she knew she wouldn't have left you that letter if she didn't know that it was possibly
Yeah.
going to be
And
valuable someday.
you know, I've had this discussion with some of her friends at the time, like with Steve, about whether or not that's what she would have wanted while she was alive. And I think we even disagreed that, because I've heard that some people are of the opinion that no, she didn't want it. She wouldn't have been able to handle success, or she didn't really want success. And she might have said that out loud because it was cool to not, you know, but I think she would have, you know, really enjoyed the fact that some
I think she would have
guy in
loved it,
Spain,
but I
yeah,
think it might have pushed her over the edge, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if everything else didn't push her over the edge and that did it, that would be.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing for a lot of, a lot of artists or writers and, anybody that's doing that, with their life where they're constantly like, why am I doing this? Like, I even hear, certain people are like, this is a curse. Like, I don't, where it's not, obviously it's a blessing, it's a gift, but you're like, it feels like that sometimes where you're like, I'm just drawn
does.
to keep going down these weird rabbit holes and keep, making these things and throwing them out into the universe. And it feels like you're throwing it into like a black hole, but like, you just don't know who is going to like, who that's going to ricochet off of and like when that's going to happen. And I think it's such a
Right.
good lesson for every person making art is that you're not necessarily doing it because you're doing it to be famous, or you're doing it because you want all this praise or people, to say nice, like wonderful things about you. Like, you're doing it because you have no idea like where that is going to touch, like in a void. And when, and it could be hundreds of years from now, you really just don't know.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And like in Lucia's second collection, Evening in Paradise, the story Andando is the one that has the subtitle, A Gothic Romance. That was the novel that she was trying to write when she was a young girl, young woman, and that she trashed because they were trying to, the publisher wanted too much control over the way it was going to go. And so she tried to piece it back together, years later, and it became a story. But just to say, don't throw your work away or don't burn it.
Yes, that's
You
true.
know,
That's true.
try not to lose it in Mexico, and don't burn it. But you don't know where it's going to ricochet, and you don't, creative process is mysterious at best. And when something comes along that influences us in the way that Lucia Berlin influenced your EP and your, future music, it's a gift, right? And for me, it was a gift just to have her in my life, much less to have her as a writing professor.
Yeah, it feels like a gift to have found this work and really be here with everybody today. It's so awesome to finally talk, hear your voice, David and Dan, and just like it just feels like a connection, another connection to her, and I just feel really part of like a cool community being in the Facebook group as well, and kind of seeing everyone post in there all the time and people that knew her in her life. And it just feels very special. So.
Yeah, those of us who studied with her, we've been, all of us who teach, who ended up teaching for one reason or another. I think we've been teaching her work steadily all along. I mean, in photocopies and whatever we could get our hands on, before even Manual for Cleaning Women came out. But I've taught it many times to students now. I teach it in many different contexts, in literature courses and creative writing courses. And I have never once encountered a group of students who didn't completely find it a revelation for them. They don't expect it. They're kind of like, who is this person? They've never heard of her. And they're completely enamored of her by the time they all want to write papers about her. They maybe it is these particular moments we didn't really, I don't remember the person who asked the question, but we didn't say too many moments, but there are these particular moments in each story that really kind of catch you off guard. And they are woven together from what in the hands of another writer would just be a banal or mundane moment in the life of a person. She brings a lot of dignity to characters who otherwise aren't given that in the fictional realm, I think.
Yeah.
People who work in doctors' offices and hospitals and cleaning houses and riding buses and, you
Yeah.
know, mothers,
Mothers.
lots of mothers.
Yeah. And I feel like like anybody knows that is doing this, you're sort of, you're doing your music or you're doing everything, but you also have to do this other thing that's going to keep you afloat and keep the rent paid and keep all those things. And I've been, working as a waitress for about 20 years up until now. And I've been, a substitute teacher and an Uber driver. And I've done, all those different things. And in order to just sort of like, kind of foster and keep this going, keep the art kind of going, you keep that, something on the side that you're doing. But in that work, you really do find a lot of inspiration for like a lot of people know that you find a lot of inspiration for the other side as well. So I think it's just seeing that here is really, really cool.
Yeah. Rebecca, did you want to like give us a little more music or say anything else about your event that's coming up this week for the people who joined late, just to kind of recap?
Yeah.
Or
I was just gonna right now I was just gonna post a couple things in this chat box to everybody. Is that here's a link to well, here is a link to the Paris Review article that Elizabeth wrote that I wanted everyone to see, and that's what I originally read. And then let's see if
we
can
met on
post.
Instagram.
Yeah, we went on Instagram. We started following you, sort of slyly following you for probably a lot longer before I got up the courage to message you. I was like, okay, kind of doing this undercover research for almost a year probably. And then this is a link. Is this it? Yeah, this is a link to the event that's going to happen. Oh, did that work? Yeah, I think there's two links
Eighth
here.
Blackbird.
Yeah,
I
Eighth
see it.
Blackbird. Yeah, so that's a link to the live performance that's going to happen on Wednesday. And it's with a quintet called Eighth Blackbird, and they are based in Chicago. But they do a lot of work with Bonnie Prince Billy and also Aaron Dresner of The National. And they put out an album that both of them wrote work on. And so I'm super honored to be going to Chicago and working with them. And they do a lot of like avant-garde and experimental work. And so, yeah, we're headed up there right after this meeting, and we'll be there all week practicing with them. And then on Wednesday night, we're going to do a performance of these songs. It's going to be the full EP. So all 6 of the songs will be performed. And in between, we're going to do tiny little readings with thank you for permission from all of the Lucia Berlin clan, the Berlin boy clan. And we're going to do some readings intermixed with the music. And there's an actress called Leah, or at least Leah Casey. She's going to perform some of that. So yeah, very excited.
I think it's going to be really incredible. And it's at like 3 a.m. Rome time, but
I know, yeah.
I may
so
make
hopefully we'll get a recording to kind of post later. But
it's a live stream.
Yeah.
And they're an Emmy Award winning quintet. So they've got a big following. So that's really nice. And do you want to say which songs? I mean, we know Mama and So Long. What are the other songs that are influenced by stories, or what are the stories that influence the songs?
Yeah, and
just so people
know, the title of the EP is called Songs for Cleaning Women. So the first track on the EP is called Songs for Cleaning Women, but it's obviously based on Manual for Cleaning Women. So that is one. There's also Strays. So, which is the title of the story, and then the title of the song as well. So Long, but the song is called Love's Not a Mystery on the EP. And
which is a line from one of
yeah,
her characters.
Yeah, which is so beautiful. And then Jockey, my Jockey, this song's called Jockey. And then Step as well, which is another one of my favorites. And then
good.
Mama. So the Step one kind of came in the same way. It came like, it was probably the second one I wrote. And then I actually watched that boxing match like 2 different times before I was like wrote
That's
this,
funny.
which is like, I'm not a big boxing fan, but I was like, I kind of want to get into the mode of what it would be like to watch this match. And it's pretty bloody and brutal, but that was kind of a
Oh, I'll have to
bucket
reread that.
list.
I haven't read
Yeah.
that one in a long time.
Yeah. So those
Yeah.
are the songs.
Do you have any other favorites or songs that you think other stories that might produce
Yeah.
songs?
So I've also written, I've written another batch, which I had about 12 done. And these are the ones that I kind of chose to do right now, sort of just to like test the waters and, you know, kind of get them out there. But I also have some songs that are about Fool to Cry. I also did one about teenage punk. I'm trying to think, Melinda, I wrote a song about that one. And then I'm trying to think of all the other ones, but there is another little batch that
Okay.
I would like to get out there. Yeah. But
Okay. Yeah, Fool to Cry is a great story.
that's one of my favorites too. Yeah.
I mean, those are all great stories. Yeah.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
love Wait a Minute as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wait a
many.
Minute is great. But they all have something, and Carmen is.
Yeah. Yeah.
More
Carmen's so
questions?
good. Yeah. Oh, I was seeing if there's a question. Let's see, Rebecca, have other writers inspired you to create a series of songs? I haven't done any like so close, like derivative work like this before. I haven't ever just like, I feel like, you know, you're always sort of inspired by whatever you're doing or reading, and you can kind of look back on that later, but I've never done anything quite like this before. So this is sort of new to me. Yeah.
I think there's some other questions
Is
too.
there another question at all? Is there other ones that I'm not?
Oh
I'm
no,
seeing this
just
one.
people saying hi, bye, thanks.
Oh,
Whatever.
okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to say, but maybe I don't know, maybe we might be wrapping up. If there's anything anyone wants to say.
Well, I just want to say that thanks to Rebecca for
Thank you.
finding me on Instagram and inviting me to talk about Lucia Berlin, one of my favorite subjects. And it's great to see Dan and David and Jeff. You know, Jeff, I've yet to meet you in person, but we will one of these days. And to see Dan again and David again, and you know, I'm just so happy, you know, that the work found its way back out into the world. You know, between friends who knew her, you know, whether Barry Gifford and then Steve and you know, so many people that knew Lucia while she was writing held her work in such great esteem, and thankfully, you know, and I think anybody who we all who studied with her were like, you know, whenever one of us gets famous, then we're gonna like bring out a collection of Lucia's work, because, you know, at the time we didn't know how to do it, but we kept, you know, but you guys beat us to it, obviously. But that was always the goal, I think, for those of us who studied with her and knew her, and had that, especially that first year group of us who were her first class of students that she ever really taught at the graduate level and at CU Boulder, and those of us who had class in her house, you know, we really formed a kind of tribe, I think, of we all knew that there was something special there, and so we're elated to discover that it was coming out as a collection, not the least of which is, you know, for our Strauss. So well done. Thank you.
So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for doing this and cheering me on.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about her. I have lots of stories, but you know, it was really my honor to just have this conversation, and I'm really excited about the album or the EP and the songs, and it was great to hear you do it live. I feel that was just like a special treat. So
Oh, thanks. Thanks so
thank
much.
you, Rebecca. I hope you drive safe to Chicago, and
Yeah.
can't wait to hear the performance with Eighth Blackbird.
Yeah.
I
Thank you
started
so much.
following them on Instagram today. I have a
Oh.
wounded hand, so it looks
Oh.
like I'm trying to flip everybody off, but it's just a Band-Aid.
David, thank you so much too.
Well, thank you. We'll see you in a couple days, and
Thank you.
you know, get ready. We might need you on a soundtrack.
Oh my gosh, it'd be a dream. Be a dream.
Well,
Thank you
Bye,
so
everybody.
much.
I mean, Eva, yeah,
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
tell David, I'll tell you this another time. No, Yvonne and I had years ago had this conversation when he came through Rome and was working on a film project that, you know, Lucia's Mexico stories should definitely be a screenplay. And, you know, and he was like, get to work on that, Elizabeth. And, you know, of course I didn't, but
Mhm.
Well, just I'll
there's
leave
a
you all
lot of
with this.
material out there.
There is a teaser here that in addition to Pedro, which is 4 stories set in El Paso and 1 in Oakland, which leads me to believe it'll be a flashback of her youth, and because there's a time difference there.
Mhm.
But that being said, there is interest also from another producer on a biography, basically the love story of Lucia and Buddy. So all of it's been put on hold because of this idiot president who botched the pandemic. But that's over now, and so hopefully next year everyone gets back to normal and start making
Okay,
movies.
Well, that's
yes,
exciting.
Good.
That's really exciting.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, David.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Daniel.
Thanks for
Bye.
showing up.
Thank you,
Really nice.
Rebecca. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you very
Talk
much,
to you.
everybody.
Take care. I'm gonna scroll
Yes.
through and see
Be
who's here.
safe, everyone.
Rebecca,
please.
I'll stay on and
Okay.
talk to you after everybody's. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Ciao.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi,
everybody.
Dan. Good to see you.
Bye.
You too, Smiley. Much love. Big hugs.
Too. Thank you. Bye.
Come to Italy and visit if you guys are ready. You know, I'm here if anybody wants to
Oh,
come
can't
visit.
wait.
When travel
Ah,
is allowed again, of
I
course.
cannot wait.
Cannot wait.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you,
I know,
everybody.
well, but your background, Dan, is very festive, or at least dreamy, you know, with the
Yeah, I
boat and
love
the
it.
beach.
That's
Is that
actually
Yalapa?
Just
I
behind
was
that
gonna
beach
ask
there
you.
was where Buddy and Lucia lived.
Oh, I was gonna say,
And
I was
there's that
wondering about
big
that.
condo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
cool. That's so
Main
cool.
beach was in front of their house in Yalapa, Mexico.
Oh, how neat.
Yeah. That's in one of the stories as well.
She was afraid the coconuts would fall and hit us in the head. And my dad's drug dealer who she killed.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories that take place right there.
Yeah.
Bye,
That's so
guys.
cool.
Can't wait to see
Bye,
you.
David.
Bye. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you, everybody. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi.
Oh.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
I know I shouldn't butt in, but I have to butt in because I miss Elisabetta. I'm so sorry. I've never met you in Rome. I'm Joan Geller's daughter.
Oh, this is someone named
Polly?
Polly. Yeah.
And
Hi, Polly.
hi. I just want to congratulate both of you. Such a beautiful,
Thank
beautiful coming together of all the, I'm just moved because we do meet. I was in grad school at Otis, and one of my jobs, Elizabeth, was driving our visiting lecturers around.
I know your mom, Joan told me that you drove Almodovar around and then translated for him, right?
You know, this is, I have to be honest with you, I think this is in her mind because
Oh.
but I like that it's in her mind, and we're not going to alter it. We'll just keep it there. But no, I drove
Okay.
people around in LA when I was in grad school, but I'm also a translator, and it's just hearing these stories are so moving. It's true. You never know where inspiration is going to hit, Rebecca, as you said. And yeah, it's.
I'm so impressed with the fact that it can become a musical entity. It's just so,
Yeah.
We said that at the beginning, that's really the test of a work of art, is how it resonates throughout the other arts, you know, if there's an echo that starts to happen. And I really think Lucia's, it's just the beginning of who she's going to influence, you know.
I
Sadly,
think so too.
Posthumous, which is
Yeah.
upsetting.
Yeah.
But but such is life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Posthumously, of course. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's just the way
unfortunately.
it goes.
But
Yeah.
Polly, come back when next time you visit, we'll have to meet.
Oh, and
Come home
Rebecca,
to Rome.
and if anyone is in LA, please do not hesitate to.
Oh, yeah.
I would love whatever, you know, just we'll stay in touch somehow. I just feel
Yeah,
like
follow me on
this is a
Instagram
small
or something
shop.
because I come to LA every once in I have a
Okay,
lot of
good,
friends
good,
there.
good.
I just had some friends on this from LA so yeah, I would
Okay.
love to meet up for coffee or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Ok, Elisabetta, stammi bene. Un abbraccio.
Yeah.
A te. Ciao, cara. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Polly
Ciao.
grew up in Rome, and her mom, Joan, was my first yoga teacher. And
Oh,
Joan is
really?
she might have been attending. She was meant to attend.
Oh my gosh.
And she's absolutely wonderful. And she's the poster child for why we should all keep doing yoga because she's, I don't know, 80
Really?
now and
Oh,
just moves
really?
like a 30-year-old. Yeah,
Oh my
she's
gosh.
incredible. So
That's
it's
so
just me, you, and someone named Clint.
Yeah, I don't know Clint, but hi Clint. But
Hi, Clint.
maybe he just left his camera on or phone, his thing on. But
Okay. Well, thank you. I hope you feel
thank
like that went
you.
well. And if you, when you do, are you going to release a recording of it or just make sure it's all kind of